And let me, yeah.
No, go ahead.
No,
Ms. Judy, this question.
Just so we have it for the record, where you stand on the Second Amendment.
Strong supporter, and I think it's more than just about guns. It's about freedom. It's one that's specifically outlined in black and white, and so gun control laws shouldn't even be a part of our culture. Because the truth is, you've heard it before, gun control laws do what? They keep guns out of the hands of law-abiding citizens. If someone has ill intentions, they're going to get a weapon one way or the other. And I don't normally champion endorsements or share endorsements with great boldness, but that's one that I think does mean something to someone. Mike Kaczynski told me he gave me a bunch of quotes. He said, you use them anywhere. He said, I've known you for a long time. And he told me he's been supporting me now ever since I first ran for commissioner. And of course, my signs are in front of his shop. And there's a guy who has an interest in the Second Amendment being protected.
Arizona just ended the requirement for concealed carry permits.
Yep. I have to tell you this. One of the great things about these Republican primaries, I've not said this to a group before, they're an acquired taste, let me tell you. It's much more fun when you enter the Republican event and all the Republicans like you. There's no question. It's an acquired taste to start going in the room and knowing that some would just as soon you not showed up. But it's also becoming clear to me the only way you can make a difference today in the country is if you are willing to have a few enemies out there that aren't going to care for you to enter the room. It's also, I think these last month or two in particular, have definitely solidified inside of me the notion that, you know what, I want very badly and deeply to represent the people of the 16th District. And I think that now that for me even the curtain's been pulled back and I'm seeing so clearly the deviousness among our parties and our government and the behind the scenes, now more than ever, it intensifies my passion and drive for wanting to be your representative. Because what I see is there's a whole lot of men and women who get into Congress or who are spending tons of money on elections that have never stood anywhere or any place like Talmadge's pheasant farm out in the field and cared about Nancy Talmadge and her son who's over at Delroy School.
Who wanted to come this morning.
Exactly, probably from within one of my ties. There's a whole lot of candidates that they've never actually been to the unheated town hall or a township hall up in northern Ashland County, sitting with three guys that had more dirt on their boots than anyone had ever gotten on their expensive loafers, and sat there and heard for 2 hours about the drainage that isn't happening right out here out front in the mosquito larva that is starting to form. There's candidates running to represent you that they have that's never entered their way of life, and yet that is so much the way of life for the 16th District. Ralph got it because he was one of them. He was standing out in the pasture, he was shoveling the manure at times out there in the barn. And so even though over the years he might have become a little bit more politician-like with his friendships and stuff in Washington, when I go to all these candidates, and we've been in countless newspaper interviews where we're all sitting together, me personally, who cares about our nation, as I look at all the candidates, I think to myself, let's not elect someone that has no clue of what average men and women are really dealing with today. One of the greatest blessings, I probably wouldn't have said this at the time, one of the greatest blessings for me, I think, has probably been ending up at that Salvation Army. I have a feeling God knew that I needed some of my conservative edges polished off. And let me tell you, there's a big difference between sitting in a commissioner's office and approving funding for a government program designed to help someone in need versus now standing in the lobby with the man and woman and their children who have the need, who are here to pick up their bags of groceries at the end of the day because he lost his job the last week, or see former AU employees that you used to go to school and see cleaning the hallways, now they're trying to get the electric bill and gas bill paid. And that's the real world of America today. And it's not about the cocktail parties in Washington or whether or not you can wine and dine the biggest donors. It's about fixing the potholes in front of the house down the street and putting people back to work at the local factory that's just about ready to close because you passed the wrong trade policies and all the jobs went overseas. So I appreciate you listening very much so.
Any other questions?
No. Just a comment. I'm talking about the regular folks in America, and that's
that's who most of us are,
Yes.
are the regular folks, the people who go to work every day and just trying to figure out how to pay the bills. I had left you a message the other day, and I apologize I didn't get back to you. The reason I left you the message was just recently, I was having a discussion with my wife, and I said, hey, you know, I heard on the radio they said the census deadline was almost up for people to get their census in. I never saw a census. We didn't get a census. So
You don't count.
well, I live in
We don't. We found that out very quickly.
I live in the big town of Savannah. Now, in the town of Savannah, they don't deliver, for the most part, they don't deliver mail to your house. You have to go to the post office to get your mail. And so I went to the local post office and asked, did I miss it? Did it get misdelivered? Where's my census? She says, nobody in town got a census. I said, really? Why is that? The census forms were sent to the post office, and then the post office was given a directive not to deliver them because they were addressed to the house numbers, not the P.O. boxes. And even though the post office knows who everybody is in our great big town of Savannah, they were told not to deliver them. So they were sent back.
Yep.
And so I started thinking, and I started making some phone calls, how many communities are in the same situation? How many millions of people nationwide does that affect, where they live in an area where they get their mail through a post office and they're not getting the census form? Hayesville was in the same situation. Kim Edwards, which you know,
absolutely.
our mayor in Savannah, Tom Cruzy, talked with her, and she said we're having the same problem in Hayesville. Now, what they ended up doing, they started receiving a lot of phone calls, upset phone calls. So what they did was they put out a notice that after April 12th, you can get a census form, but you got to call and request one. And it's kind of a complicated phone call with phone prompts. Now, supposedly, if someone doesn't call and request a census, which I got to think a lot of people in Savannah will not call, then they're supposed to send someone out, a census worker, at some point, assuming they don't fall between the cracks. But I'm concerned that this is part of a larger design, since most of these communities that get their mail by P.O. box are rural and mostly conservative communities.
Because as you talk, I'm thinking to myself, the census was trying so hard to get tables set up at the Salvation Army to count people that came in. The Salvation Army on a national basis, we're not supposed to even comment on this, the national leaders are, but they did not want that to take place because of the ability to
abuse it.
Exactly. You said it,
So I'm just concerned. I don't know what's going to end up with that, but maybe as you travel around the state, talking with folks, ask them if they know of communities and if they're in the same boat. But it appears that anybody that lives in a community where their mail is delivered to the post office, they are not. Nobody is receiving a census.
Well, isn't that census supposed to be used to draw
Yes,
voting lines,
exactly.
things like that?
Yes, that's the
Ridiculous.
problem.
Actually, the
That
purpose
is
of
the
the
problem.
census, and the only purpose of the census, according to the Constitution, is to decide how many people he represents.
Right.
And
from
according to
whatever
the
party,
Constitution,
yeah.
it's 35,000 people for each representative. So all of the other questions on the census form are a violation of the Constitution of the United States.
Yeah.
I just want to say one thing about what Matt said about my son. Rick loves ties. He's Downs. And he saw a tie on Matt. And he said, I want that tie. I said, Rick, see that? Matt says, I'll bring it to you. I said, don't you dare tell him that unless you mean to do it. Well, he did it.
Yeah.
He wore it. He wears a tie to work every day. And he said, somebody asked him, where'd you get that tie? You know what he said? The governor. He's the county commissioner.
It's a prophetic statement.
He was the county commissioner at the time. And he said, the governor.
Very good.
We've got a lot of mileage out of that one. But he don't want to be governor. He wants to get up there.